what I'm talking about, and welcome back to Book Club. It's quite frankly Book Club. It is session 4 for the Neverending Story. I am joined by my co-pilot in this thing, and actually I'm the co-pilot, but Lindsay Sharman. How the heck are you doing this week?
I'm fantastic. I remembered to wear my Orin again. I'm ready to go.
Oh, we are ready. We ended, the reading ended at the end of chapter 22, which you and I were just saying, perfect. It was a perfect ending. Like, yeah, I don't know. There was, it's right after that battle at the whatchamacallit, the palace over there. And it's just like, this is perfect, because the rest of the show, the rest of the book is going to be, it's going to be a nice little batch of reading, maybe 50 pages. I don't know if it's even that, but it's going to be such a clean way to end. And just a couple of thoughts off the top of my head for what we've read so far with this last collection of chapters. I cannot wait to watch the second movie. I've never watched it as an adult. I never even remember having gotten through it as a kid. But I saw it, I just went to look for it on Amazon yesterday as I was sitting down with Aurora. She wanted to watch. She's been watching it nonstop now. The first one, she's been asking me for it because I just showed her a scene with Falcor in it. Now she wanted the dog, and now she just is starting to understand things. But while I was there, I said, "Hold on a second, Aurora," and I went to check for number 2, and there it was, and 3,500 nearly 5-star reviews. And I always thought that this was just like a failure. And so I wasn't expecting to see it so highly rated. What's your thought on the second movie?
I don't remember it hardly at all. And when I finally read the book, I don't remember thinking, "Oh, here's the second movie." So I thought they were totally different, and they just went a different direction. And so I would have to revisit it again too to even know how much of this it actually covers, or if it's even similar at all. I don't know. In my head, it was sort of just like a nah. Who cares about this?
Yeah, it was like that for a while. Now I'm just so curious because I was talking with Lauren, and she was asking about how is it like compared to the book, and obviously there's just so much in here. We're talking 3 seasons worth of HBO miniseries. If you're going to, you need to sign up for at least 3 seasons, HBO 60-minute episodes. Maybe 6 to 8 season, episode seasons, and you can get the book exactly as it's been written. But I told her, like you said, honestly, Lauren, 95% of the first movie is included in the first 12 chapters. So I'm curious as to where we go from here, because this is incredible. And what has started out as a young boy that was really, struggling with so much, just being deflated inside, and it's self-image, it's depression, it's mourning, it's loss, it's all that stuff. We are coming full circle right now, and he is losing himself completely now, with the Orin and the powers that he's seizing for himself, even trying to usurp in this reading over here the power of the childlike empress. So go right ahead and take us along for a nutshelled ride here.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say too, this is so crazy where we ended. It's such a cliffhanger. And then there's very little left in the book, but it feels like we're right in the midst of the worst turmoil. And you're like, how could he possibly solve all these problems? So I love where we ended too. But where we started in this section, he had kind of just gotten to Fantastica. He hadn't spent that much time there. We had Gargaman and the desert, and we had the doorway saga, and then he got to Amerganth, and that's where we're starting. So he's kind of just in his like bulk of time in Fantastica here, really getting into it. And right away we start seeing how he's making these mistakes. He starts seeing the consequences of his actions, right? And he's acting out of good intentions, but as we've heard so many times, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Indeed.
If you're just thoughtless and full of desire and you just react to life, this is the kind of stuff that happens. You turn some crying, whatever they were called, Acaris, into the schlemoofs that just destroy everything. And they're constantly laughing, sure. But is that actually a good thing, right?
Right. Absolutely. That's the first thing that we see here, that the Acaris, they get turned into these clown-like things, that don't take anything seriously. They don't listen, nothing like that. And you start seeing right off the bat that resounding theme of you need, and nothing is free. You there's a price to be paid for everything, and then of course once you get into a hamster wheel like this, it almost becomes a feedback loop, and this is where the wishing just does it just doesn't cut it, and things only get worse. So yeah, there you go.
Well, and he says on page 291, he says it really had been unselfish as he's describing himself about changing them into schnoofs, but is it really unselfish, or was it to satisfy his own desire to not be a creator who created horribly sad things, right?
Yep.
It's not as unselfish as he thinks, and it's also really ignorant. So yeah, what are the prices of this? And Atreyu's the only one putting it together. Atreyu's trying to learn as much as he can about Bastion, about his world, about what's going on. He's trying to piece it together. He knows something's wrong. And he says, I think the gem or the Orin works different for you humans. I think you're forgetting yourself. And we see again, he lost another memory in creating the Shaloofs, and it was the memory of Krista, the little girl who he had told the stories to. So we're seeing all of these losses that he's suffering too. And at the end, he does say, he says, by then I wasn't so sure that he had done a really good deed at all, right? Like, what was it even good to do this? We can see probably the answer is no, but they carry on, guided by his wishes. They're moving forward, except actually they realize they're not really making any progress, right?
Yeah.
Is that this chapter?
Where they're going in, when they're going in circles, you mean?
Yes, and they keep coming back to the same place again and again. And he says, well, I guess that I don't really have a wish, right? If I don't really know for sure what I want, maybe I don't make any progress, or I'm not really undecided or unclear on what I want, then we're not going anywhere. But Yika, the wise mule, is like, well, I know what you want. You said you wanted to see Moonchild again, right? And then suddenly this is rekindled. He's like, oh, yes, that is what I want. And now all of a sudden they make progress. So you do have to have a wish. You can't have no wishes, right? So that's not the way to go forward. Interfering with anything you come across, just reacting to it out of your emotions, that's not really helpful either. But you have to go somewhere. So even though he's still ignorant, he's still not healed, he still doesn't know exactly, but he at least knows that he wants to see Moonchild, so he'll at least make some progress. So we can see that in our own lives too, right? If we don't have any goals, we go nowhere. When we do have a goal, we'll go forward. But if we're not doing it well, we're going to create more problems for ourselves. But we also can't just stop and be stagnant. So it seems like a double-edged sword, right? The Orin is as well.
It is, and not only that, but I think the last time we got together, we were talking about how much of the past is still really important to keep in mind, not to let the past dominate you, to make certain peace with it, but to also to keep those lessons as perspective, as a Genesis story for yourself, because right around page 300 is where Sebastian seems to have forgotten about all the kids that used to make fun of him, even things like that. The children who made fun of me, Bastian repeated. I don't know any of any children. I'm sure no child would have dared make fun of me. Yeah, I mean it's one thing to move on and not have those experiences control you anymore. It's another thing to be completely detached from reality, to think such grandiose things about yourself, which obviously spin way out of control by the end of this reading.
Yeah. Well, and we see this too, right? The psychopaths of the world are the people who have completely forgotten that they're just a person too, right?
Yep.
And they see other people as totally different from them, just like he is. So he's headed that way, right? Everything's external, everything's out to get him, perhaps. He even fights with Atreyu at this point, right? And he says, I don't want to go back home anymore. And Atreyu's like, oh no. Like,
because if you can't do that, if you don't want to go back home, because he says you have to go back, you have to go and straighten out your world so humans will start coming to Fantastica again. Otherwise, Fantastica will disappear sooner or later, and all the trouble will have been wasted.
Yeah, don't you want to heal your world? Don't you want to heal your side of things? We also learn in this section that Bastion can't meet Moonchild again, according to them. And he's sort of paranoid. He's like, you don't know me. You don't know what I can do. I might be different from you. I'm a human after all. I might be able to see her again and again. And he counts the number of times he's met her already as 2, even though one of them was actually just him seeing her through Atreyu's eyes. He counts that as once, and then actually meeting her at the very beginning of his entrance to Fantastica as twice. So he's kind of deluding himself right? Which we also can do when we're in this state. We're like, no, it could be different for me. Like, I can do heroin and not get addicted or whatever people tell themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, no, you can't either, probably. And it's interesting on page 307, Atreyu says about, they're talking about the childlike empress. It says, Falcor, Atreyu asks, do you suppose the childlike empress cares what becomes of Bastion? Maybe not, said Falcor. She draws no distinctions. Then said Atreyu, she really is a... Don't say it, Falcor broke in. I know what you mean, but don't say it. And I'm always like, what was he going to say?
I don't know. Like, I know. Well, how bad was the word he was going to use?
Right. Don't say it. So they're also learning on their own too, like what's actually going on here. Even Falcor at that moment has this sort of break in his voice, like indicating that perhaps even he's losing his hope. And he's like the eternal source of hope, the luck dragon. So it's getting kind of dark. They're like, he's losing his memories quick. He doesn't even want to go home now. He's getting really narcissistic, I'm gonna call him. And he's just pushing forward with this.
I was thinking about this, because he was, he obviously has this self-image issue again, where now he's forgetting, whereas he was totally down on himself, now he's getting megalomaniacal. And it's that whole idea. It's that whole idea. What are my notes over here? My notes says self-image and identity versus Ozempic. So I guess it's just like the Ozempic route to getting to changing your life is just, he's just using the power of the gem, and there really is no, what's the heavy lifting? Where's the challenges? Where are you walking through those gates again at the Southern Oracle, where you have to, examine yourself and pass the tests, and now it's just, I don't know, like everything is flying off the handle. What's the other thing that you just said? Darn it, you just said something really, really good. What did you just say?
He's a narcissist, that Falcor has no hope.
Falcor. I started wondering at one point here, I said to myself, is Bastion becoming the nothing?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand what was, something's coming around there, because of course the witch that we for some reason in my head I keep seeing Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, but for some reason the witch, I keep thinking, okay, well, this is the witch is obviously almost like Gmork. It's like that same kind of feeling there, and there is that despair, that disconnect that has been reintroduced into the world. I mean, so quickly after Bastion took over there. So I didn't know if he was somehow, creating the nothing again through his wishes and through all this despair, or if he was just, I don't know what the hell he was becoming part. Obviously, he's being manipulated there. But the fact that Falcor was losing his buoyancy, and at one point he was just walking, walking with Atreyu, and so he just gave up flying altogether. I said, what is this? Is he the nothing now? I don't know.
He's definitely dragging things down and causing some problems. It's a really interesting corollary. It's really right on with the Ozempic thing, right? Because all of his stuff is external. None of it's internal. He's still inside, just like this empty, doesn't know himself, like it has no faith in himself, but externally he seems cool and other people praise him. And that's all he wanted, was the external, right? So we also see this, like, Ozempic, sure, everybody outside of you will think you're a skinny person, but inside you're still the person who, shame ate, or, fear ate, or whatever food addiction you have, or whatever else is going on that you didn't fix. It's still all here. You're not getting anywhere.
Right.
Yeah. And this witch character, Zaide, or however we're supposed to pronounce her name, she lives in that hand with the eyes all over it, right? And there's the hand with the eye on it that is a sort of spiritual symbol. People have probably seen the hand with the eye in it. It's called the Hambra. And this reminds me of that hand. It's very similar. This has more eyes. The Hambra just has one eye. The Hambra is like protection, is the idea, right? It's almost like protection from the evil eye, or protection from negativity. And it's interesting they use this symbol here, that he uses this symbol here, because Zaide is sort of what happens when you are all about protecting yourself, right? Like all about like, I'm going to be so powerful, nothing can hurt me. I'm going to have all these orchids around for miles that will eat people who are approaching. I have all of these hollow shell giants that I can command around, and I live in this fortress that's nearly impenetrable. Like, yeah, you're very protected and strong, I guess, but also now you're just, this kind of empty husk of a person that's only focused on the power and the protection and nothing else. What is your life for, right? Like, what's actually good about any of this?
Yeah, and on that
Um,
same and on that first page in that first page of the Seeing Hand, chapter 20, you have it right there with Bastion. He wasn't innocent, he wasn't harmless, and he'd soon show them. He wanted to be dangerous, dangerous and feared by all, including Atreyu and Falcor. It's
he
like,
didn't need protection. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like why it's one thing to say I can jump over, I can leap the tallest building in a single bound. I can do all these things in this world, but I need to also create myself a challenge. It just can't be this easy. I'm already bored of everything. And now it's gotten to the point where he wants to be the one that somebody has to defeat, essentially.
Yeah. As the bully becomes, or the bullied becomes the bullier,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah. He's just cold, he's angry, spiteful, like he's just acting out of this, you know, I want to be hard, I want to be protected, I want to be impenetrable. And it's true, when we do that, we automatically create the opposite energy, like the opposing energy. We saw that with like Gamork is created right when Atreyu starts his quest, right? As soon as you do something, like the opposite exists. So if you're going to protect yourself and you're going to be this hard person who's so powerful, like who is it you're going to be protecting from? Who are you going to fight?
Yeah.
And Fantastica creates that for him. So yeah, he there's a whole mission. He goes in and saves what's his face, Hicorion or Hisbald or one of them or all of them. Yeah, all three of them.
All three.
Secanda jumps to his hand again, right? And so he gets to fight off everybody like a blur. It's beyond belief. He's amazing.
This is in the castle, right?
Yep, in the castle. And then Zai, the witch, bows down to him, right? And it's like, oh, you're so incredible. I could never overcome you. And this flattery and manipulation, like it's so easy for us to see, but Bastion just wants people to love him, to tell him he's great, to tell him he's amazing. So he just falls for it, hook, line, and sinker. He's done.
Yep. Absolutely. Now
And
from
when
there,
Yeah, go ahead.
she so the way, how are you pronouncing her name again?
Zaide? I don't know.
Zaid.
Yeah.
She joins essentially the my lord, my master, she said in a deep voice, sounded somewhat how mysterious. No one in Fantastica can withstand you. You are mightier than the mighty and more dangerous than all demons together. If you wish to take revenge on me for being too stupid to recognize your greatness, trample me underfoot. I have earned your anger. Like you have to be so like as a reader, you have to say Bastion is in such a state of blindness. You have to be in a state of absolute blindness to not know that she is blowing smoke up your ass.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Like, come
it's
on.
just so over the top. And yeah, and Krista in the chat room, the things that started going on toward the end of this, like preceding the battle over there at the palace, where there's actually molestation going on. And so like the knights start becoming so bored that they're fondling fairies and things like
Yeah.
that. So going back to what Atreyu was about to call the childlike empress, but we never got there. I started thinking maybe he was going to say something vile about her.
Yeah.
Be-
He's like, why would you allow this? Like, but we do the same thing though, right? With God, right? We're like, why would you allow? What is this world if you can allow this darkest evil?
Yep.
And so yeah, but it's interesting because we see what happens when someone intercedes and stops the development of another, right? Just like he does with the Shalmoofs and the Acaris. And so there's sort of this hands-off policy might actually be the wisest way to let everything come to its natural conclusion, right? And growth. So it's interesting. Yeah, and at the end here, Falcor and Atreyu don't even they're like, we're not gonna fly with her. What are you talking about? Like, she's evil. And then they do, though. They let her on. Like, they're so committed to Bastion. They want to help him so much that they're like, let's just at least get through this and see where things go. But it's not going anywhere good. Bastion says, shut up and leave me be. If the two of you aren't satisfied with what I do and the way I am, go away. I'm not keeping you. Go where you please. I'm sick of you. Just like harsh. And it gets worse. It's not even the worst part. But before it gets worse, we have this whole Star Cloister chapter.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorites. I love it. We learned too that on page 335 that his coat of arms is a 7-armed candelabra, or candelabrum. And if you remember in the attic, he had the candelabra. That's what he was reading by.
Also, the taxidermied animals, they're being represented now as this tribunal.
Yes, this triple. What do they call themselves? The deep thinkers.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, from the Star Cloister. But before he even gets to that, he sends Yika away. Because this is like such a sad part.
I've already seen a couple of people comment on this in the chat room. I think Krista said this a little up there. She says, it was only when Bastion told Yika to leave that I lost respect for him. He will probably still redeem himself, but his choice in Yika over a grand horse showed his true nature.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't care at all. He was like, just to be here is enough, just to have this whole world, be able to meet Atreyu, and who cares what horse I ride? And he's still not really like, oh, I need to ride something so powerful, but kind of, that's what she's saying to him, right? She's like, no, you need something better. But he still, you can tell, like, doesn't really want to, but he does it anyway. And so this is intelligent, and this is exactly what narcissists do to people, right? If anyone's ever known a narcissist, they do this. She says on page 336, my will, said Zaid with a smile, it's because they're empty that they do my will, talking about her empty, guys that she controls. My will can control anything that's empty. And this is what sociopaths and narcissists will try to do. They'll try to separate you from anything that actually fills your soul so that you're empty, so that you're controllable. And that's why she has him send Yika away. It's not because she cares what he rides. It's because she knows that Yika is one part of his heart, right? That actually has some real connection. That's a danger to her. She has to have Bastion be as empty as possible.
See.
She has to get rid of Atreyu. She has to get rid of Falkor. And she has to get rid of Yika. And so you see him tell her this story. Oh, she's going to go and meet her love, and she's going to have children. And again, just like the Schlamoose, like, that sounds unselfish, but you're doing it for selfish reasons, right? And Yika wanted to stay with you. She didn't actually want to go marry this other horse and have babies. She's going to be happy. It's a fun story, I guess, that, as we're told, will be told another day. But that's not what she wanted. And it's not actually what he wanted.
No, but if you've ever had a friend, somebody you care about, who's ever been isolated away from everything that they ever knew by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, I mean, everybody growing up, you've lost a friend to a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and it's not just, you growing up, you want to spend time with your significant other. No, I'm talking about losing a friend. Like this person built a wall around them.
Yeah.
And cast out everything that was going to compete, and did it in a manipulative kind of a way. It's sad to see that. It really is. And then
well, and she even does it to himself, right?
Yeah.
She says on page 340, oh, no one can contend with you, Zaid whispered. Not if you are wise. The danger is inside you. That's why it's hard to protect you against it. And this is also what those sociopaths do, those narcissists do. They will convince you that you are broken. You're empty now, even of your connection to yourself. You rely on them completely, and now they control you. You are done for. They're so calculating, and she's one of them.
See, and that's the other thing that I continue to wonder about here. As I said last time we got together, there's been several times that I've asked myself during the reading, is Bastion physically in Fantastica? Is he missing back at home? Is this all taking part over the course of an evening? But it feels like thousands of years in this world and all that time. Is it all really just one night away from home up in the attic? Is he in stasis somewhere? Is he sitting underneath one of the tarps sleeping? But he's in I don't know. And the other thing I wonder is,
I love it,
if all the people Every last character, because of course, when they're looking into the mirror gate, Sebastian is Atreyu.
Yeah.
Atreyu is Sebastian. I mean, that's that concept of duality right there. So, all throughout this, whenever you talk about somebody who's interpreting your dreams, they always try to remind you that you are everybody in your dream to at least a certain extent. So I'm wondering, you know, obviously he's fighting with himself. He's trying to cast away a piece of himself. It's strange that he's trying to cast away the most courageous part of him that he just found, the most noble part of him that he just found with Atreyu, and he became joined with. So there's all this, but then again, in our lives, we do things, we find ourselves in really depressing situations where for some reason, if something is not feeling right, the people you love the most always, maybe you don't go and mess with them or yell at them, but you can get cold with them for some reason that you almost why you want to inflict it's just something
Yeah.
we do. And
Yeah.
it's strange, but we can see it here, especially when you consider that everybody that he is dealing with in Fantastica has to be some kind of a fragment of who he is in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's true. And in a way, everyone we interact with here is too. Whether you take it to like the full woo-woo side where like we're literally all one and blah blah blah, or you just say like whatever I'm noticing about someone, I'm noticing because it's in myself. My experience of someone, I'm experiencing that because of how my orientation is and what I'm holding for myself. And this is sort of the difference between the psychopath, the narcissist, the sociopath, and the person who's not, right? Is the person who's not has learned to look within themselves for the cause of things and the solution to things. And even if there's unfair things going on, you're like, yeah, but I can't control that. So what can I do? And the narcissist, sociopath, right? They're all saying like, no, you're all the problem. You're all needing to be controlled. I'm better than all of you, right? This is the external versus the internal again. And yeah, when he goes up with those deep thinkers, we have Shurkrai, the father of vision. We have Yisipu, the son of reason, and we have what's the other one? I think it was on the previous page. Ushtu,
Yeah.
the mother of intuition. So we have intuition, reason, and vision, and they're all wondering what's actually going on. What is our universe? What is this place, Fantastica? What realm is this? And it's we can relate because we're all like, where are we? What is Earth? What are we doing here? What is life? What's out there, right? These are the big questions, and they have this question for Bastian, the great knower. And we talked about this earlier, right? Where there's a difference between studying something, learning about something, having the knowledge, quote unquote, and actually doing it, living it, being it, and therefore knowing it. It's a different kind of gnosis. It's true gnosis, right? And they call him Bastian the knower because he does know, because he has been outside of Fantastica and he can tell them what Fantastica is. And he ends up showing them through that light El Sahir that he had claimed right back in Amergan.
Yep.
And it's interesting because now we have a little bit of retro causality. Like what came first? He got Al Sahar first, but he couldn't have shown them the true nature of Fantastica without Al Sahir. But he didn't know at that moment that he would ever be in such a situation. And if he's creating it all, like how did he know he would need it? How is it so perfect, right? And we see this a couple times. Like he had the thing he needed before he ever could have known that it was exactly what he was going to need. So was it planned all along?
Yeah, and not only that, but this is the first time since the first 12 chapters where, Bastian is, screams and Morla and Atreyu hear him. And like, where you start getting bleed over, where you realize as Bastian is in the attic, these characters are responding to him. He's responding. Like there is a link and there's a bridge there between these worlds that is, it's somewhere. You don't understand the nature of it, but that goes away for a long time until this part right here that you're talking about, where he holds up the stone high and he cries out, Rihasla. And at that moment, there comes a flash of lightning so bright that the stars paled and dark cosmic space behind them was illumined. And that space was the schoolhouse attic with its age-blackened beams. In a moment, the vision passed, and the light of 100 years was gone. Al-Tasir, was vanished without a trace. That's the first time in a very, very long time that there's actually ever there ever a bleed over between worlds again. The fact that the sky is kind of just like brightened, and the backdrop is given a new kind of, house lighting, that you can actually see through the sky into the attic again. So here is a link again between Fantastica and the school attic. It's only for a brief moment. I just wonder what the hell that was very Twin Peaks right there.
Yeah, that's very Twin Peaks. Yeah, and Bastion doesn't even bat an eye. He's like, "Yep," and they're all like, "Wait, what?" They're like, "I saw myself there." And like, "No, I saw myself." Each of them saw one of those animals that was in the actual attic again. So, like you said, all of these characters are some sort of reflection of Bastion. And we know that, though. His wishes are creating all of it. So it's all coming from him. So even subconsciously, he's manifesting this vision, this wisdom, or this intuition, this fox, this, eagle, all of these beings that are so wise. But like, it's not conscious. He's not like, okay, now I'm going to meet three wise beings and it's going to be the three animals from the attic, right? Like, he's not consciously doing this. And one could argue that's what we're all doing too, right? We talk about manifestation, and I teach manifestation, I practice manifestation to some degree. And I also teach people that you're always manifesting. You're never not manifest. Just because you choose to start learning manifestation and doing it on purpose doesn't mean you've never been doing it. You've been doing it all along. You've been doing it much like Bastion is doing here, totally unconsciously. You're just creating random experiences, not being sure even what you want. Or I'm not saying everyone's doing this, but most people are. So if you're at least becoming conscious of it and you're saying, well, what is it that I wish? What is it that I want? Then you can create intentionally. He's not doing that. This is all just spewing out of him, just like reacting, just fulfilling random desires that he didn't even know he had, and seeing where they lead him. Literally. And by the end of that chapter, it says that night, Bastion lost all memory of having gone to school. The attic and the stolen book bound in copper-colored silk vanished from his mind. And he stopped even asking himself how he had come to Fantastica.
See, I'm glad how can you miss that? Because that sets up that right there, that almost as if the chalkboard has been erased.
Doors closed.
and then the next day he goes to war. He goes to war. He launches. The battle for the ivory tower. Of course, the childlike empress is not there. He wants to install himself as a successor. But it's so strange. First of all, the celebrations that he helped arrange in his honor. All I kept thinking was, this is the Biden inauguration.
Yeah, it is empty.
It's just this empty, stormy, nobody's there. It's been, there's the military encampments around the entire campus of the Capitol. It's just wrong. It's a stillbirth. There's nothing real about it. It's forced. And then it was the perfect setting for an overcast, cloudy, windy kind of a battle. And Atreyu and Falkor coming in there. And even in their mindset to face Bastion and their forces and go to war with all the rock biters are coming in, and I mean there's an entire fleet of luck dragons now. Even in that approach with this confrontation that's building up, they had nothing but the best of intentions to try to save Bastion. I think there's still nothing cold and bitter in their hearts about what they're doing.
No, in fact, you can tell they don't want to, and it's horrible to read it because for a children's book, right? There's the fondling that we saw and talked about. There's the drunkenness. Now there's just blood and terror everywhere. Yeah. They're killing each other. It's not just like, oh, and now we'll all be alive again. It's like, no, you murdered all of these Fantasticans for this will. And Zai describes it to him on 361. She says, Zaid spoke to him of a new Fantastica, a world molded in every detail to Bastian's taste, where he could create and destroy just as he pleased, where every creature, good or bad, beautiful or ugly, wise or foolish, would be the product of his will alone, and he would reign supreme and inscrutable, playing an everlasting game with the destinies of his subjects. Like, what a horrible fate. And she says, then alone will you be truly free, free from all obstacles. And it's like, is that freedom? This is again the idea of like the hand and the eye, and you're in the fortress and you're protected, but like from what? And now you've created an enemy and now you're not experiencing life. And is that freedom? Is it freedom to be free of responsibility for yourself? And right, no, it's not freedom at all. It's in fact such hard fisted control. It would take so much effort and energy forever.
Yep.
But yeah, they still want to save Bastion, still want to help him. And it says very clearly as well why Atreyu and Bastion had such sort of equal wills, or why their armies were sort of equally meshed, and why there was so much bloodshed. On page 369, it says, but there's another more likely explanation. Atreyu was fighting not for himself, but for his friend, whom he was trying to save by defeating him, right? So when you're fighting in selflessness, when you genuinely are just trying to do what's best for others, then that's a different type of will than Bastion's otherwise kind of all-powerful will, but it's self-centered, so it's weak, right?
Yeah.
The only reason why that's even a struggle.
And of course that's in that face-off between Bastion and Atreyu, Sikanda did not activate. There's no real threat there. You know, Atreyu is not a threat to Bastion. Bastion is a threat to Atreyu, and of course he forces Sikanda out of its sheath. But they're right there. And we forgot to mention that one key scene about this here too. Why Bastion believes that there was a betrayal between Falkor and Atreyu. It's because that damn belt makes him invisible, and he heard a portion of a conversation between Falkor and Atreyu about how they got to get this amulet away from him for his own good. But of course, Bastion thinks it's because Atreyu wants the power for himself, and that's just more of the deception of the witch, Ziad or something. But this exchange right here on 370 brought me right to Revenge of the Sith. Obi-Wan versus Anakin. They stood face to face. Still, Sikanda did not budge. Atreyu put the tip of his sword on Bastion's chest. Give me the amulet, he said, for your own sake. Traitor, cried Bastion. You are my creature. I created the whole lot of you, including you. So how can you rebel against me? Kneel down and beg forgiveness. You're mad, cried Atreyu. You didn't create anything. You owe everything to Moonchild. Give me the Orin. Take it if you can. Atreyu hesitated. Bastion, why do you force me to defeat you in order to save you? I said, that is so
deep.
That's man. That's deep. That is Obi-Wan versus Anakin too. I like that. That's a resounding. That's big right there.
Well, and we can all feel it. If you've ever been or known someone in any kind of addiction or any kind of abusive relationship, it's the exact same. You're like, why? Why are you destroying everything? Why won't you let me help you? Why, when I'm helping you, do you see me as the enemy? When really I just love you. It's so hard.
Atreyu and Artax in the swamp. You know, that struggle of like stop being like you see him, he's struggling. There's just nothing you can't just tell somebody to stop being sad. You're there for him. You're trying to pull him. And then at the end, it's just you stupid horse. You know, it gets you. So, but
and Artax is not back, right? We have not seen Artax. No. I just remembered that. I just realized that in the movie he's there, right? I don't know if he ever comes back in the book, but I also have to point out on page 370, right before that conversation, he has this ornate, stupid mirror throne or whatever that he's been sitting on, and that is shattered. It says the mirror throne stood, now shattered into 1,000 pieces. And this is the first broken mirror we've encountered in this book full of mirror metaphors. So it's kind of like the last, like it's done. Bastion does not have a connection to himself. He's lost everything. It's all, even his best mirrors are now separate from him. Like, how will he find himself now?
Right. Well,
and that sword, it was spoken by Groggerman that if your will draws it, if it doesn't leap into your hand, it spells great misfortune for you and all of Fantastica. So we also have this horrible prediction that things are not even as bad as they're going to get.
And he takes to his horse after he strikes Atreyu in the chest with his
chest.
I know, he's a gash in the chest. Atreyu and Falcor go off, and Bastion essentially vows that he will follow Atreyu to the ends of the earth, and he went and did that. And now we are staring at chapter 23, the city of old emperors in the face. So let's get into the audience submissions now. First one up is from Vesper. It says right off the bat. Let me get this up on the screen with us. Actually, hold on. Boom. Right off the bat, Bastion learns to be careful what he wishes for. In his attempt to help the Acheris, he transforms them from being the everlasting weepers to being Schlamoofs, the everlasting laughers. I couldn't help but be reminded of the 1967 episode of Star Trek, The Trouble with Tribbles, in which the cute, cuddly creatures began to multiply on the ship, causing chaos for the crew of the Enterprise. Although humorous, the development illustrates what can happen when there is an absence of balance. We are experiencing the same loss of balance in the world right now. Never before had the polarization of ideas, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs seemed more stark than it seems today. To borrow from Shakespeare, middle ground, my kingdom for middle ground. And Shakespeare is actually referencing this. Shakespeare. Right?
That was so funny because that was mentioned last time in one of them. And I was like, I don't remember that. And then the next day it was like, oh, there it is.
It's the first page. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to take Mark G?
Sure. So much action in this week's reading. First of all, Atreyu may not be a real person, but he has June Badass written all over him. He simply can't be stopped. His determination is all completely selfless. What a character. Second, this has to be some sort of master plan of the childlike empress. She must be teaching Bastion a lesson in the most difficult way. As we get so wrapped up in the action of Fantastica, we are reminded of the schoolhouse attic when Bastion shows the three deep thinkers a glimpse. Is Bastion asleep in that attic and dreaming? Is he just so wrapped up in his imagination? Either way, we have to think that he will come out of this as a changed person in the human world. His time in Fantastica will hopefully give him the confidence and perspective to help him make thoughtful decisions in real life. It was very hard to put the book down and not read ahead this week. Yeah, and that's actually the key, right? Thoughtful decisions. Like, what is actually right and how do you know right from wrong? You don't actually usually know. Usually it's your reaction, it's your emotion, it's your unhealed self, it's all of this projection, it's all this guilt and fear and blame and all of these things, not actual wisdom. So how can you gain that? And this is sort of that childlike empress, maybe some of the lessons she's guiding him to understand, right? Is that it is all actually within you, but you have to be able to know what is true and what is not. And you have to be able to know it because you've lived it, not because someone told you. Someone could tell you, go to Fantastica, make all these wishes, but don't forget yourself and don't interfere and don't, and it's like, well, okay, but how are you actually going to know? We have to live life and we have to find out for ourselves.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, you know what? The best thing is that, I'm sad that the book is coming to an end, but we're going to get all those answers very, very soon.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see here. Jalen Wenning says, I feel like chapter 18, The Acheris, transported me directly into a Jim Henson mind trip a la The Labyrinth. My imagination used freaking Muppets to fill in the... Oh, yeah, I was thinking Dark Crystal, too. Maybe it's because I'm 40 and I grew up with these movies and they had a fundamental role in crafting my imagination. Maybe I'm just biased toward 80s fantasy. There's nothing like 80s fantasy. There's nothing like it. It's even just the cinematography. It's one thing how they do. I love the practical prosthetic makeup that they do in 80s fantasy, but it's also just the cinematography. I love the way that they do skies, and of course, that's the greatest thing that they did with Neverending Story. The movie is just the. I don't know how the hell I guess maybe it's just dry ice to create the swirling skies. Yeah. And I love how they did that.
So cool. That was like what sucked you into the movie. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, just the opening credits. You're just like, wow, wow. Look at the sky. It's like that creamsicle color, but it's just, I don't know. It's beautiful. I'm with him though. Okay. Here's Krista. Krista said, you go right ahead and you can take this.
All right, page 363, Bastian doubles down on his supremacy. He then announced that in exactly 77 days, he would crown himself childlike emperor of Fantastica, and that the event would be celebrated with such splendor that it would outshine anything ever done in Fantastica. Sound from...
Is there any significance to 77?
Well, it's that 7 again. It's just like it's kind of doubling down on 7, right? It's the numerology would just say like, oh, this is 7, but like really, really 7. So we keep seeing these 7s. These are like divine cycles, right, of creation. And so we see it in the Bible all of the time. We see it over and over again in the book. So they're just kind of nodding to it. I don't think there's any other specific, but it'd be interesting to look like if there's some historical siege or, something that's what was like, if in 77 days they don't, whatever, then I'm the new emperor, because that'd be a pretty cool illusion. But yeah, she says, sounds familiar, a power-hungry leader and their ignorant following installing themselves into office. How about a rebel army of righteous opposition? Pretty spot on. Reverend Mark Thompson, the host of the Make It Plain podcast, hosted the Black Caucus panel on day 3 of the DNC in Chicago.
I saw this.
I didn't. He told his compatriots that they must hold themselves in check until the election is won. We got 70 days to act right, y'all. Now, after 70 days, we can go back to acting crazy, right? He said.
Yeah, there's no mistaking what he said. I've seen this. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
And talk about inciting violence. Yeah, it really is weirdly similar to today's situation. What's going on?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, this is from good to have John Carroll back. I haven't had a submission from him in, I think, since the week 2. But here is what John Carroll says. Bastion seems to have become Moonchild's evil twin. Although Moonchild remains infamously detached, she doesn't interfere in the affairs of Fantasticans. She simply serves and supports them indirectly. Conversely, Bastion interferes in every realm he enters. He only serves himself by wishing things for himself, to be brave, wise, etc. Moonchild's selfless inactions created prosperity, but his selfish actions created devastation. I agree with Mark G that Bastion is probably learning this lesson while dreaming in the attic. And I think the 2 serpents on the book in the Orin, the light and the dark, represent Moonchild and Bastion. It seems that the point of the Neverending story is to learn this lesson. It's also not for nothing that the ruler of Fantastica rules from the center, from the heart, and is a child. I think this is a metaphor for our own inner child, which either remains innocent or becomes corrupted based on how we live our lives.
Oof. Yeah. I remember when I was really, really young and like seeing a homeless person or something and just walking up to them and my parents being like, no, but right. That's the childlike innocence where you're like, what, you're worthy too. You're just a person. Like we're just here together. Like no distinction is made. Right. Which maybe is somewhat dangerous too, but that's that heart-centered sort of energy. If I were teaching this in a classroom, one of my assignments by the end would be to come up with all the things that are the 2 snakes in this book, all the things that are mirroring each other,
right,
but are actually just one thing, just different sides of the same sort of thing. Because I do think it's Moonchild and Bastion, and I also think it's Bastion and Atreyu, and I also think it's Atreyu and Falkor, and right, we could come up with all of these different examples of the mirror being just one thing.
Absolutely. That's a great point right there. See, that's what makes you a teacher.
Well, thank you.
The fact that you would have those exercises ready to go, that is like so teachery. Okay.
It's so teachery.
Okay, so you take the next one, Dyslexic Angel.
All right. Again, I am reminded of the movie Mirror Mask, the journey of a young person through light and dark, finding balance in life and remembering who they are. Also, I have this feeling like an itch at the back of my thoughts that this is a Christian story and that the Trinity are represented in this book. C.S. Lewis keeps coming to mind when I read this book. It's very similar energy to C.S. Lewis. It's so good, especially in that it's like a hidden, there's like an occulted, just like any book really, but there's an occulted message there, right? You have to dig to sort of find it out. It reflects your own journey. If you're doing it right, you're actually growing while reading it. C.S. Lewis is a master.
Well, I mean, there's also, I got the books now. I have Lord of the Rings. I have the entire set, and I have to read those soon. But it's the same thing with
Yeah,
Tolkien.
true.
And I mean, you can see all of that influence in there. And I don't know. This is very, very interesting takes there. No doubt
Yeah.
about it. Let's see. Molly Arty. Oh, Vesper, that's a comment on Dyslexic Angel. Molly Arty says, heartbreak. This is so difficult to read with so many parallels in today's world. I felt an overwhelming sadness like Artax. I suppose with Bastion, I confess by the end of this week's reading, I noticed I was reading his name as Bastard.
Yeah.
Yes, he had crossed that line, no doubt about it. Having been through all of the loss, the bullying, the feeling of abandonment, he must go through this like all heroes' journeys. He must face his Jungian dark side, the anima, quite literally, Zaid, in order to conquer it and become the person he's meant to be. This has to be at least part of Moonchild's plan, and or at the very least, he must realize that he cannot come to see him, that she cannot come to see him drunk on power and self-imposed glory. At the end of this part of the reading, he has even lost his creativity and is sunk in that void. Also, like Artax, except he lashes out instead of giving in. This is also gives rise to the axiom that, quote, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which sadly is mirrored in today's world. We can hope that as part of the never-ending story in our own mirrored world, that we will also see victory with peace and goodwill. Can we hope? Haven't read forward, just hoping, as all good Western stories do, a positive ending. I don't expect a Game of Thrones ending for this one. Yes, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't read forward either, but I might go a little bit tonight. Who the hell knows? Okay, you want to take Nebula, Snark?
Or Vesper,
Oh,
right?
oh, okay. Oh, a little bit more.
Bastion certainly makes it hard for us to like him, and yet he still clutches to a thread of decency. Even after Zaid bids that he dispose of Yika, he kept telling himself that he had made Yika's dearest wish come true, but that didn't make him feel any better. A person's reason for doing someone a good turn matters as much as the good turn itself. This is so true. It is so true. That's that. And this is that thing where we can say we're doing something unselfish, right? I had a therapist tell me this once. I was saying like, oh, I'm gonna go apologize to such and such. I don't even remember the situation, but I was like, I'm gonna go apologize, and she was like, why? And I was like, to apologize because I messed up. She's like, well, are you doing it because you think they need your apology? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, so you're just doing it because you want to feel like you're being forgiven? And I was like, I guess. She's like, is that the reason you apologize to people? I was like, I don't know anymore. It's like, but it's true, right? Like, what is your actual purpose, and who are you trying to serve? Is it you? And then if so, maybe it's the right choice, but maybe it's not. It definitely
That's
matters.
just such a basic question. Nobody asks themselves. I don't do that.
Right. And then I started asking myself that for everything, and it changed everything I did.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it is? I just feel people around, and I'm sure everybody watching here too. I guess it's always been that way, but especially right now, people are so hypersensitive and guarded that I just take extra steps to make sure that what I intend is the meaning of what I intend to say or do is not getting lost somewhere, and that everybody's okay. Is everybody cool?
Yeah.
Just because I really do feel like, I mean, adulthood is, and adult relationships are, they're just as messy as childhood relationships are. Only thing is that we bounce back a little bit easier as kids, and we can let things roll off the back of our roll off our backs a little bit more. But now I feel like we're just walking through a minefield constantly.
Yeah.
So
there's
just disclaimers to everything, and I'd never ask that question to myself. I really should.
Well, it sounds like you're doing it for compassionate reasons. Sounds like it is for other people, right? But yeah, it's worth asking. Like, what am I trying to satisfy myself, or am I trying to help other people? Or like, what is the purpose here?
I'd like to have other people be happy, and I'd also like to have no added stress in my own life. I mean, there's definitely some relationship management reasons there, because there's nothing like walking around and having that pit in your stomach of there's there's a loose end with somebody. There's somebody is out there feeling a certain way about something that doesn't have to be. I hate
Yeah.
that feeling of, and I just want everybody cool. So
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, and there it can be both, right? You
Yeah.
can be like, no, I want to go serve food at the homeless shelter because I want people to be fed, and also it makes me feel good. It's
Yeah.
selfish too, right? Like it can be both.
Well, we got two more here. Nebula Snark. You want to take that one?
Where am I? Oh, here it is. Yeah. I'm keeping it light this time around. Bastion's path into darkness has been heartbreaking and difficult to read. I feel like we might need some uplifting images after this week, so here goes. I was happy to see that the reading started out with Bastion finally getting to ride Falcor. I could imagine how it felt to ride the Luck Dragon and to hear the symphony he created with the currents around them. This imagery was lovely, and I felt like the paragraph ended much too quickly. I wanted more looping the loop.
Yeah.
That was great. I was also happy when I learned this week that the term Prince Albert has two very different definitions. I'm so glad I'm not alone in this. I would have completely forgotten before, this. And I was like, what?
I would have completely forgotten this. That somebody at the gathering was wearing a Prince Albert. I said, you got his, what? Really?
Wait, hold on.
It's got to be something else.
I thought this was a children's book. That's so funny. I'm so glad you said that too. I fear. Yeah, and apparently it surprises me every time I read it. So I actually choked on my tea laughing when I read this until I finally realized that in this particular case, a Prince Albert is a double-breasted frock coat. Oops. There were goat-legged fawns and gigantic nighthawks. There were elves and kobolds, beetle riders and three-legses, a man-sized rooster and jackboots, a stag with golden antlers who walked erect and wore a Prince Albert. It even says erect in the sentence. Like, come on.
There's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on there. Finally, I loved this part about the deep thinkers. I wish there were more, if any, institutions with such standards in our own world. Quote, deep thinkers set the highest standards, thus there were seldom more than 300 monks in the cloister at one time, but these were by far the most intelligent persons in all Fantastica. Occasionally, the community dwindled to 7 members, but even then there was no thought of relaxing the entrance requirements. I love it.
If only any of those congressional hearings we've watched over the years were handled so responsibly. Yes. Make a statement. Let's take a break until tomorrow to really think on this. They get taking things slow and all that, whatever. But even at the end, there was a schism, and they all went off to start their own orders, right? Isn't that what happened?
Well, and it was funny because he said, they were like, which one of us is right? And he said, all 3, but it didn't matter. They still were like, no, I saw myself. I'm the right one.
Yep.
Right?
And here's the last one, Gypsy Princess. My disjointed observations. Number 1, I love Yika's half-assed philosophy. It has a ring of humility yet confidence to it. I know I am an ass, but I'm only half an ass, and that gives me certain superpowers. Here's 2 quotes. When a person is only half an ass like me, and not a complete one, she senses certain things. And because I'm only half an ass, I feel certain things. Number 2, I wonder why Atreyu continues referring to the childlike empress by that name instead of the new name Bastion gave her, Moonchild. It's almost as if it's a hint of the growing rift between Bastion and himself. Number 3, Atreyu seems to be everything Bastion would like to be, but Bastion is increasingly becoming the opposite. Selfless, courageous, compassionate, sensible, loyal, intuitive, observant, respectful, deserving of respect, wise, self-controlled, kind, patient, good, gentle, self-sacrificing, humble yet noble, pure, confident, discerning. I have to keep reminding myself that these 2 boys are boys, not men. I find myself being disgusted by Bastion's weakness, pettiness, foolishness, and stupidity, but I have to remember he's just a little boy. And a bullied boy at that. How hard is it for bullied little boys to resist the temptation of power, revenge, pride, and the adoration of the multitudes? Oh, yeah. Number 4, as much as I hate war, I am reminded that there is indeed a time for war.
Yeah. Like Atreyu had to bring it. Like that had to happen. It was right actually to do so. I love that note though about they're just boys. And I have this whole theme in my own life, right? I'm a teacher. And so it's so easy for me when it's students in my classroom to forgive them almost. I mean, I have impenetrable boundaries and they're going to have consequences, but I can forgive them almost anything because they're children, right? And I don't take anything they say very like personally at all because they're children. And right, there's all of these like infinite patiences I have for them because they're children, But then as soon as I leave the classroom, if you're an adult, I have no patience for you. I have no forgiveness for you. I mean, not none, but like way less or none. And I just have to remember, but isn't everyone actually just this little boy, this little girl trying to figure out the world?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the path for boys and girls are a little bit different, but going through those formative years, 8 through 15. I mean, that's just we may be walking parallel, well, not parallel paths, but like there's a fork in the road, and we take the fork, but it's big. I guess we have different mountains to climb and different things there's a lot of self-actualization there, different brands for boys and girls, but nobody is given a pass for those years. And
Yeah.
you're talking about 10, 11, 12. Oh boy, you're in the middle of it. So, all right.
And you're kind of like Bastion usually. You're like, who are you? Don't tell me what to do. I know everything. I can do it best. Like, you're just like not always that extroverted about it, but like kids are often, I mean, that's the thing, right? They think they know everything and they don't know much of anything.
And they don't. So next week is the last one. And now next week we're getting together on Tuesday the 3rd, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, because Monday's Labor Day.
Uh-huh.
And I have the day. I'm taking that day off, but Tuesday's the 3rd. Are you okay for Tuesday at 9? Because we can do any day that you got to be there. So whatever.
Yeah, I have to figure it out because I'm going to be on a road trip. So let's say Tuesday for now, and I'll try to narrow it down to a day that seems like I will very likely be able to show up.
Okay. All right. You
Okay.
just let me know because it's the last one and
The best one.
I know it's going to be the best one. All right. So everybody, Lindsay, your link is in the description as always. Anything you want to leave people with before next week?
I hope that we can have some compassion for Bastion, even as he is such a bastard in this section.
Yes. Okay. Going into next week with high hopes that Bastion stops being a bastard. Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Frank.
All right. There you go. So that's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, Molly. I see Molly, Kate. Thank you for joining us. V, Mel, Winston, Nebula Snark, Just Boys, Krista, let's see who else. There's a few other, Gypsy, Stephen and Lori, Trumpy. It was a good one tonight. I really, really appreciate you guys being here. Enjoy the rest of the book. It is literally the rest of the book, and I'll see you next week. Until tomorrow, good night.